All right, Maris, I'm just wondering, is Mickey Mouse as big in the Philippines as he is everywhere else in the world?
Oh yes, he is. We grew up watching Disney films and cartoons. We love it.
Well, the reason I bring it up is that earlier this week, PBS devoted 2 full nights to Mr. Disney's Amazing Tale.
But even in 4 hours, they missed some of the ways a Disney footprint can still be seen around Kansas City.
So producer Ashley Holcroft and videographer Dave Burkhart set out to remedy that.
In a humble neighborhood near the heart of the city, a young man of modest means, not particularly good at drawing or animation, yet with an undeniable fire in his belly, would borrow a camera, and in a garage on Bellefontaine, Walter Elias Disney would record his first motion picture, setting events in motion that would change show business forever. So, in remembrance of one of Missouri's most famous sons, we've decided to retrace his Casey footsteps with Disney aficionado Butch Rigby. Our first stop is Walt's boyhood home.
It's the brown house on the right. They usually have Mickey Mouse ornamentation in the front. Yes, they do. They're very proud. You know, you hear and you read about all these great American business people that started in garages. Well, Walt Disney really did start in a garage, and he started in a garage here in Kansas City. Really, it's an amazing thing to see this house still standing. Family has lived here for decades, and they're very proud of the heritage of the house. The neighborhood's very proud of the heritage of the house.
But his time here was hardly carefree. As president of Thank You Walt Disney, Dan Viets can attest.
Walt worked very hard while he was here in Kansas City. He had to get up every morning at 4 o'clock and throw the morning paper. And after school every day, he had to go out and throw the afternoon paper. And that was hard work for a little 9-year-old kid especially. His dad was a very strict disciplinarian, and Walt knew there was no choice about it. I went back and researched what the weather records are for that first winter that he was here in Kansas City, 1911 to 1912. Well, it turns out that that winter is still the record holder for the year in which Kansas City received the most snow for an entire season, the most snow for an entire month, and the most snow in a single day. All those records still stand, so you can be sure he wasn't exaggerating. He was walking through snowdrifts taller than he was. And for folks who lived in apartment buildings, he had to go into the apartment building and put it at each subscriber's doorway. Well, they would have a nice warm radiator there in the apartment buildings, and he would curl up on the floor next to the radiator and, of course, fall asleep. And then he'd wake up with a start, worried because he was late for school. He was late delivering the newspapers. And he said he had nightmares about that even when he was an adult.
Those very classes he feared missing were held right around the corner and bear a unique distinction.
The first art classes that Walt Disney ever took at what was then called the Benton Boulevard School, one day his teacher assigned the class to draw pictures of flowers. And so he drew his flowers with faces on them. And the art teacher corrected him and said, "Walt, flowers don't have faces on them." Well, in 1932, Walt undertook the production of a film called Flowers and Trees. The entire film is about flowers and trees who have faces on them. And there's just no doubt that when Walt made that movie, he was thinking about his art teacher back here at Benton School.
But before success became synonymous with his ventures, first he had to learn how to animate, and he did so in time-honored fashion.
A very young Walt Disney walked into this building and checked out a book, Edward Muybridge on animation. He was telling the Saturday Evening Post. He said, you know, a library influenced all of 20th century animation because I didn't know how to draw cartoons. I read the book, and then I made drawings. And a few years later, some of us here from the not-for-profit Thank You Walt Disney approached the library. We asked him how many books had they purchased, you know, of Muybridge over the years. They said 2, one in 1950 and one predating 1920. And sure enough, they did put it in special reserve collection.
While studying the mechanics of animation, Walt worked for the Kansas City Slide Co., now the Crossroads Academy.
You know, I love the fact that these very windows that Walt looked out of are still preserved within the building. This great light shows just what kind of a terrific art studio this was. And it was in this very building that Walt Disney and Ub Iwerks really made the decision that they could make a career and spend their lives in the animation industry. And hopefully it'll have that same influence on all the children going to school here at the Crossroads Academy in the 21st century.
It was from this building at 10th and Central that Disney would make a huge creative leap.
Once he was convinced that he knew how to animate drawings, he then left that job and founded the Laugh-O-Gram Film Company and located it at the building at 1127 East 31st Street. One of the single most important sites in the history of Hollywood animation. It is the building where Walt Disney learned his craft and taught others how to animate films. And of course, the single most important historic event that occurred there was Walt kept a mouse as a pet. That mouse inspired him 5 years later to create what has become the single most widely recognized fictional character in the world.
And you say he was just right up there.
Well, Walt Disney
Right there,
was
second floor.
on the west side of the second floor. He had about 2,500 square feet, and we were able to prop up what was remaining of his office and save that, and the rest of it was collapsed in.
Thank You Walt Disney has been working diligently to preserve this landmark. But conservancy isn't their only aim. Their plan builds on the past for a stronger future for Casey Animation.
The goal will be to reproduce the Laugh-O-Gram offices as they would have existed in 1922, then to take the rest of this office and create a working animation lab with some historic things that the general public can come in and see, but also have a working digital lab in here so the next generation of creative artists from Kansas City can create some of that content right here.
So, a great man's legacy continues. To be preserved are the walls he touched, a pathway laid for up-and-comers, Missouri's beloved son, who braved the winters and the mice. Yet, when it was all said and done,
If you had it to do over again, would you do any part of it differently?
Well, if I had it to do over again, I think, no, I don't think I would.